Hey everybody, I'm Christy Pearson and I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic. I am nervous, so I'm going to pause for a second, ask my God to come be here with me. I had to ask him to take me out of self so I can be of service to you guys. Very grateful to be here tonight, and you guys are my family, and this place is my home, so I shouldn't be nervous. But I'm just not good at this part of AA. But when I'm asked to do these things, I do them because you guys have always been here for me when I need you to stay. And so my sobriety date is. We'll start lying. It's September 6, 2017. Would that be two? I know, 16. 17, 16? I'm 2 years sober. Anyway, that's terrible. But I have a sponsor. I do not have a home group right now. Being a good alcoholic I am, I was going to get here and lie and say I do have one, but I don't have one right now. I am talking to my sponsor about trying to see which one would fit for me and what I could, where I can contribute the most to. So I am working on that right now. So I'll tell on myself one more time. I started feeling like I was getting sick last night, and somebody gave me some Alka-Seltzer for cold, and I was sitting there, I said, well, if I don't take this Alka-Seltzer and let my cold get worse, I'll have an excuse not to do this tonight. But God seemed fit to make me well, so I could be here tonight for you. And I was going to tell y'all guys that you should feel privileged because you've got a paid speaker here tonight, but then you might have some real high expectations. But my job does allow me to work and then take care of me and be part of Alcoholics Anonymous while I am working too. So that's another good thing God's blessed me with in my life right now, and it keeps everything green for me and keeps me around ladies I need to be around. And so that's another blessing in my life. Let's see, I'm going to tell you what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. I was born in Macon, Georgia. My dad was a brick mason. He was down there. He worked out of town. He traveled to laying brick. He met my mom. They had me come back up here to North Carolina, where my dad was from. It's called Gibson, North Carolina, down around Scotland County line. And I had two younger brothers. I was the oldest. This program started giving me blessings at a very early age. I think I was 5 when I met you, Robert. But when I was 5 years old, my dad come here to the colony to get help for his drinking. I don't remember my dad drinking. I don't. So we stayed here, or he come up here, and shortly after that, our house burned down in Gibson. So there was another trailer over here, and so we stayed in this trailer. And I remember walking up this hill to catch the bus and stuff like that. When I come down this hill, it's just like whatever's going on with me, everything's at peace, because I don't know, this place is just spiritual. It's like a spiritual experience every time I'm here. And so started coming around here when I was 5 years old. Me and my two brothers, like I said, we lived over there for a while after our house burnt. My dad completed the program. He started working here. Eventually we moved. My dad was able to buy a house. We moved into Rockingham. I had a good childhood. I have, there's no reason. I had a good childhood. My dad was sober. My mom did the best she could. I don't know. I think she's codependent and like the alcoholic man and didn't know how to know how to be with my dad while he was sober. So, and he was very dedicated to his job too while we were growing up. So we spent a lot of time with my mom, a lot of separate, apart and stuff. My dad was out here, doing what he needed to do to keep him sober. And so when I was about 12 years old, my parents split up. I lived with my mom for a while, and then my brothers my brothers and I lived with my mom for a while, and then we ended up moving in with my dad. My mom had met another man, and I guess he was more of a priority at that time, and so we ended up moving in with him, or with my dad. And so I managed to, like I said, I had a good childhood. My dad was always present for us. He was a good provider. We had what we needed, not everything we wanted, but had what we needed. I remember, like everybody else talks about, always having those feelings of less than, not good enough, not pretty enough, not funny enough, all those feelings growing up. And I can't tell you when I took my first drink. I don't actually remember, but I do remember, an ease and comfort when that happened, and feeling like I'd found what I'd been looking for. It was about 14 or 15, I'm not sure. And so somehow I managed to graduate from school. Graduated from school. I'm sorry. Finished high school. My dad wanted me to go in the military. He thought it would be a good thing for me to do, and so he took me to Fayetteville to see about joining the Air Force, and I didn't want any part of that. I didn't want to leave this town. I don't know. I thought this town was the best thing around, and it just wasn't. But at the time, I thought, I don't want to ever leave Rockingham. But I managed somehow, shortly after that, I started out here at this community college, and I was going to school there, partying, experimenting, doing, just remember all those things I said I would never do, like, I'll do this, but I'll never do that. I started doing those things I said I'd never do, just experimenting more and more. And around 25, I met this guy, and I did somehow manage to graduate from college too. That's right, like really when everything started progressing, the use of other substances and stuff. And so I graduated college. I met this guy, and we had our first son, or my first son, and things were going okay. I worked and just still starting to experiment more and more with more hardcore substances. And finally, he called me. Somebody had stole my car out of the driveway a couple days, or that night, or 2 days before that, or something like that. And like 2 days later, he found a bag of a substance in my coat pocket. I guess he was snooping. He was suspicious, and I said it wasn't mine, that whoever stole my car must have put it in my coat, hiding it or whatever. But anyway, he was talking about getting the bag fingerprint and all this stuff. Anyway, so my dad, he called my dad, and my dad had somebody to talk to me about, what could potentially happen. Because my dad had warned us when we were growing up that you're predisposed to this gene for addiction and all that, and I didn't take him serious. I thought, oh, not me. And so he had somebody come talk to me from Alcoholics Anonymous, and I minimized everything and made it look like it was just a one-time thing, and that wasn't me and all that. So I got out of that, and then that was the end of our relationship. After that, he couldn't trust me anymore, and so we had this son, and we split up, and I moved out. We split up, and I've got this son, and I'm trying to take care of him and support all my habits, and I'm still working at the time. I could still work then, and when I got away from him, that allowed me to do what I wanted to do even more, and started hanging out with all kind of people, and just things started getting out of control real quick. And my son, we were sharing him, and then it ended up where he was just with his dad. I couldn't take care of him, didn't want to take care of him. I could say I love my kids, but I love the substances more at that time, and ended up with this guy that was he was a chef, and he was making our substances, and it was really bad situation. And I remember my dad and Robert tried to come down and talk to me one day and get me out of it, and I was trying to say, everything's okay, we're okay, but it wasn't. It was a nasty, terrible mess. And finally, a couple months later, I got pregnant again. 5 years later, I got pregnant again. I was 30, and I couldn't quit using. I just couldn't. I couldn't. I stayed in denial about it, and I used it until I was 7 months pregnant. And so finally, I come out here to the colony, and I asked my dad to get me some help. And let me back up. I went to my first treatment center when I was 25. My dad kind of sort of gave me, if I didn't do it, then he was going to let my son's father know what was going on, blah, blah, blah. And so I went to a really nice treatment center my first time. I think we had like ribeyes on Saturday. It was really nice. And I stayed the 28 days, and I come home and just to appease him and get him off my back. And I'll say all the other ones I went to were state or whatever, they were free. But anyway, the first one was nice, and so I come back home, kept doing the same thing. Okay, then fast forward to where I'm pregnant with this child, and I'm 7 months pregnant, and I can't quit using. I just can't. And I come out here and I asked my dad to get me some help, and he was able to get me into a treatment center that accepted pregnant women or women with children. And I went there and stopped using it 7 months, and I had my baby at 9 months. She turned out perfect. She's by the grace of God, because I put her through a lot of bad things. And so I'm in this treatment center, and I have my second child. My first child staying with his dad. I ended up leaving this treatment center, the second one, because I couldn't. I was asked to leave because I brought substances back there. Because when I'd go home, I wasn't ready to let go of those people, places, and things that they talk about. I didn't want to let go of those people, and so I was coming home, and I was seeing those people, and I was getting substances, and I was bringing them back to this treatment center. And then finally, I guess this, we can spot our own kind or what's going on. And this girl knew that something was off with me, and I let her in on my secret, and because I knew how to get around the screens and everything. And so I told her, I said, well, if I share this with you, then you're going to have to give us some urine before, so we'll be good when the tests come. And so we took our test and come back. We had the same amount of Valium in our system. And so she told me she was clean. So anyway, I had to leave that treatment center, and I went back, come back to Rockingham, to those same people, places, and things. Did those same things for a couple more years. I got to where I couldn't work. I was a liar. I was a cheat. I was a thief. I was a nasty, ugly person. And I would say whatever I had to say, do whatever I had to do to get what I wanted. And just I was a nasty person, and so I went to Sackett Treatment Center. I come back here and I was doing the same old stuff, just, always thinking that I could manage it, and, or if I didn't do this and just did this, I could handle it, and it wasn't true, never worked, not one time, and so my second child, daughter, I took a bunch of hostages along with me and thought they would fix me and make everything okay, and that was just never the case. And then staying over here off 220, and my middle brother was staying with me, and we were both in active addiction together. He, my baby brother, he went through this stuff too, but he got sober when he was about 21. His consequences had gotten bad enough for him that he'd had enough, and he got sober when he was about 21. But my middle brother and I, Chris, we used together for many years, and so we're living together, and I've got this middle child with me, and things were fixing to get real bad. The guy I was staying with, I'd finally ran him off, and like the lights were fixing to be turned off. It was just really bad. So I remember waking up one night when it was in July, and I seen my brother walking up and down the hall, and I asked him something like, "What are you doing?" or "Why are you up?" It's the middle of the night, and he's like, "I can't sleep," or something, and that was about all was said, and I went back to sleep. Woke up at probably 7:30 in the morning, and I went to get something to drink. I never made it to the kitchen. My brother had hung himself in a dining room as a direct result of this disease. He just couldn't do it anymore, and Alcoholics Anonymous program has helped me to make peace with that, and this time around I've made peace with that, but it was really hard for me for a long time. I couldn't understand. I was mad and angry at God for doing that too, but today I have a peace about that. I had to call my dad, I had to call my mom, I had to call 911. It was a terrible, terrible ordeal, and the middle daughter was there in the house when it happened. Her family come and got her, and they kept her. So, my brother died. Alcoholics Anonymous was there. They were there for my dad. They were there for me, whether I wanted them to be there for me or not. They were there. I mean, it was just unbelievable. And and they were all wanting me to go to treatment before something happened to me. I remember we were looking at caskets, and my aunt was like, "If you don't do something, you're going to be next. You're going to be next." And I don't want to hear that. So they wanted me to stay with my dad because my stepmom had to go out of town for something school related or something after the funeral, and I couldn't stay with him. I had to go and medicate, and so I went, and then I come out here, I think Sunday to church because I was asked to, and a bunch of people from Alcoholics Anonymous surrounded me and wanted me to go to treatment, and I was like, yeah, okay, I will, and I said, but I need to go see my mom before I leave, because she was a real big enabler and stuff, and I had them drop me off there, and I manipulated my mom into taking me to my car, and I was gone for a couple more weeks, and trying to medicate and just not deal with what had happened. And so I was over at this person's house, and we were doing stuff, and something just came to me, and I said, I got to go, and I left, and I come out here again, and I told my dad I needed help, and I went to treatment again. And so went to treatment again. Then I went to stay there for 28 days. I went to a halfway house in Moore County, the Bethany House. I stayed there for a year, and I left there, and I was doing good for a little while, and I met this guy, and a couple months later, I ended up pregnant again, third time. And I remember my dad, when I told him, he was like, told him I was pregnant, he said, you can make them, but you can't keep them. And I thought, oh, how cool is that? But anyway, so he told me I needed to get married, and so, or he thought it would be a good idea. It was my third child, and, I'd never been married or anything. And so me and this guy got married, and I had slowly started slipping away from Alcoholics Anonymous and doing what I was taught to do, and so ended up relapsing, and so I thought, since I was going to a doctor that, and he was prescribed me all this stuff, that it was okay, I could manage that and I could do it, but that wasn't the case either. I never been arrested or anything up until this time. My consequences just hadn't got severe enough yet. When my daughter was a couple months old, I get tickled about this, it's so embarrassing, but I had went to the grocery store to get some groceries, and I ran into somebody, and then I took a lot of Xanax, and Xanax makes me pick stuff up that's not mine when I take them. So I'm going back toward home, and I'm going around the traffic circle in Moore County, and somehow I ended up in the middle of their flowers. I stole so many flowers at the traffic circle. They were planted too, and I just had them. I had so many, they were lined up in the passenger side right here in between me and the door. The back seat was full. The groceries were covered in dirt. And so I made it around the circle with all these flowers, and I'm getting to go out 15501, and I see this monkey grass on the side of the road in this other subdivision. I start pulling that shit up, and here comes the law. I went to jail for my first time. I was on the second page of the paper. A woman steals flowers from traffic circle, and that's how. Yeah. So anyway, it was my first time in jail, and when it started, jail, it kept coming real frequently. Jails and institutions, and then it became, I wanted it to be death. But anyway, so I'm still, married and live with this guy, and I'm starting to go back to Richmond County, and because I could never get enough, I want to say my drug of choice or whatever is more, because I always want more, and I could never get enough. I just couldn't. So I'm going back to, because those prescription meds, that weren't enough anymore. I needed more. And I'm going back to Richmond County, and things are just getting real bad between us, and he doesn't want me around anymore. And so he has my third child, my daughter, and he's keeping her, and eventually he ended up taking a restraining order out on me because I get ugly when I'm under the influence. And so I'm back just in a miserable existence. It's just so miserable, and all I can do is just keep medicating because I don't want to feel it. And so I'm just staying wherever I can because I can't work. I can't do anything except take more. And so I had my first suicide attempt. I took 90 Klonopin, and I was staying with this old man, taking care of him or something like that, and it's just a place to stay, I guess, but because nobody else wanted me around, and I just became so miserable, and just having to exist like that. I just thought everybody'd be better off without me, and I took those 90 Klonopin because I thought that he was going to go lay down, and then somehow he come in there to ask me something. I was non-responsive, and I vaguely remember going in the ambulance. But anyway, I spent like 9 days in ICU. I come home. I didn't call my dad. I didn't call anybody. Nobody knew I was there, and I was so mad when I woke up. I was angry because I thought it was done and over. And so I went back and doing what I was doing, and things got progressively worse, like they always do. And I had made all these real grand plans for my exit. And I quit going to probation. I'd been on probation. I'm still on probation right now. I've been on probation probably the last 9 years of my life. So I'd quit going to probation. I just quit doing everything because it's like it's not going to matter because I'm not going to be here. And I had done a lot of research on the internet about ways to end it. And I'd read this one thing about taking a grill and putting it inside of a small room, and it's kind of like the effect of carbon monoxide poisoning. And one of my husband's friends let me stay the night there. I had kept trying to plan to do it in these motel rooms, but I kept doing more and more, and I always would run out of time because you know how it is. You can never get anything done, or everything takes too long when you're high and stuff. And I'd ran out of money by that time, so this guy let me stay the night there, and I waited till he went to work the next morning, and I was going to do it. And I had X amount of pills, and I took those, and I pulled that gas grill in there and put the towel under the door and everything, and I was in the middle of whatever was going on, and the door opened. Somebody come down there to get something they'd left because it was kind of like a hangout house or whatever. And so he calls 911, and I'm flipping out because I think I've got absconding warrants and all this other stuff. And so I put my shoes on and I started running. I left my phone and purse, whatever. If I don't even know, probably didn't have any money at the time. And I took off running because I didn't want to go to jail. And took off running. I'm running through the woods, and these vines are cutting me, and I've ran out of my shoes, and it's just real bad. And I can hear these helicopters and these dogs, and I'm like, oh my God, you have really screwed up now. They're going to put you under the jailhouse. But, those people were trying to help me. They wanted to help me, and at the time I didn't realize that, but that's what they were wanting to do. They were wanting to help me. And so I broke into a house while I was running through the woods, and I stole some more meds. I took them, and I took a knife out of there too. I guess I thought maybe I'd slit my wrist, but I was never that brave to do anything that gory. But I wanted the easy way out. But so I took those meds, and I guess I slept in the woods for several days because I was so, took so many meds, and I woke up several days later. I don't remember all of it, but I remember sitting in the woods for like 2 days and trying to figure out another way to out myself because I was still so mad and miserable. And how could I face these people after what I'd done? And I contemplated running in front of a car and all that, and I just never could go through with it. And one morning I woke up and I was seeing this guy out in his yard, and I wanted a cigarette so bad. I hadn't had one in about a week, and finally I was like, I walked out of the woods and I said, "Excuse me, do you have a cigarette?" And this guy was like, "Are you Christy?" And he said, "No, I don't have a cigarette." And he said, "Are you Christy?" And I said, "Yeah." And he's like, "Your family is so worried about you." And he showed me a flyer where they'd been looking for me. And so they were so nice. These people were so nice. They let me come in their house. They fed me. They let me take a shower. I hadn't had a shower in a week. They gave me clean clothes, and they were just really, really nice. They prayed with me and everything. And I think I knew I was going to jail. I knew I was going to jail, and it was all right. I was at peace with it, And so they did call the deputies, and they come pick me up and took me to jail. And got a bunch of more bunch more warrants and absconding charges and all. I finally got those absconding charges while I was in the woods. I didn't have them when I thought I did, but yeah, I did get them. But so I went to jail, and my dad, I've heard him talk about that he's seen this look of fear in my eyes. And now I can identify with what he's talking about, because when he come to see me in jail, I could see that look of fear in his eyes, and just scared. And so stayed in jail for about 50, 60 days. I was real fortunate. I got through that process rather quickly, and I went to court, and Becky Carlson helped me get into a treatment center called First at Blue Ridge in Black Mountain, North Carolina. So I went up there, and it was a work program. It was good for me. It's what I needed to get away, and get away from for a while. And while I was there, my life, things didn't get good, and until I'll say this, I always thought you people, growing up out here, I would see people, and then later on, me becoming an alcoholic addict, I would think, well, these people, their stuff can't be as bad as mine, or they didn't have it as bad as me, or they weren't like me. I was always trying to see the differences and not the similarities, because I seen them, all these smiling faces, and everything was good in their life, and I couldn't understand it. I just couldn't. And because I thought, with God, if you've done the things I've done, how could you ever be happy and or okay, or how could you ever have anything? And so I went at this treatment center, and I stayed for a year, and it gave me a good foundation to get where I needed to be. And when I first come back around this time, it took me a long time of just holding on. I had to hold on for a long time, because like Robert said, I am happy, joyous, and free today through the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, but I wasn't for a long time. But I knew that I didn't want to go back to that miserable, lonely existence. But I couldn't quite wrap my head around how this was going to play out and how I was going to be like you guys. But I did want to keep holding on this time, and I held on for a long time. And I stayed at that treatment center for a year, and then it was really a good place. I had a lot of good recovery up there, but I knew that, I had kids here and I had family here, and I ultimately wanted to come back here. So I'd asked my dad several months before that about the Bethany house, and he was like, well, they're going through some changes, and I don't know if it's a good idea right now. So I kind of let go of it, and then I thought about it again. And so I called one day, and the lady that was my house manager answered, and she's now the director. And she said, come on down the mountain, and we'll work it out. So I come back, and I still didn't have that feeling of happy, joyous, and free and all that. But I was still holding on, still not wanting to go back to where I was. And so I come back down here, and a couple months, I got a job. A couple months after that, I was asked to... if I wanted to work at the Bethany house. And that was such a privilege and an honor, and because that's my home too. I spent a year there before, and it's very special to me. And I want to say, Alcoholics Anonymous, it's truly changed my life. I'm a responsible person today. I have my own apartment. I've never done any of this stuff before. I pay bills. I'm a productive citizen of society. I get to work at this wonderful place and be around these wonderful ladies all the time. And I don't know, I'm starting to stutter, but or lose thought. But so I guess I'm gonna close it out. But Alcoholics Anonymous has, I am happy, joyous, and free today because of Alcoholics Anonymous and you people. So thank you. I love y'all.